Yes, people, how you doing? And welcome back. And you guys may disagree, but I was doing my daily doom scrolling. Yeah, probably need to sort that one out. And I came across this clip of Joe Rogan making the case for Jesus, which don't come up on your feed every day. So let's take a little look.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus makes more sense. The difference between science and religion is that science only asks you for one miracle. I want you to believe in one miracle, the Big Bang.
Yeah.
It's because it really is true.
Yes.
And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason that anybody's adequately explained to me. It makes sense.
Yeah. No.
Instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus on that one.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus makes more sense. I'm sticking with Jesus.
Hasn't Mr. Rogan just opened up a can of worms? And I can't lie, it's true. I think God has given us enough evidence throughout time, throughout scriptural evidence that we have, throughout looking outside and looking at the world that's just there somehow, to the way you breathe, to the way your body works, and it's so intrinsically designed and intelligently designed. Like, that doesn't just happen. And I'm not saying God makes more sense because the Big Bang doesn't. I'm saying Jesus makes more sense because of the evidence that we have. The Bible says things. Literally, we found places because of the Bible. We've looked at things and dug it up, and the Bible said it was there, and it was there. Archaeology discoveries happened because people used the Bible. There's plenty of things the Bible says and it happens. Prophecies thousands of years ago that it talks about, and then it came true through Jesus, and it came true in Jesus' time. All these things don't just happen because the Bible is a book of a collection of books. So the Old Testament would have been written thousands and thousands of years before the New Testament. It wrote about things that happened in the New Testament. We can't organise anything nowadays with all this technical stuff that we have. Never mind back then orchestrating something like it wouldn't. It's impossible. But then you have to conclude that evidence, majority of it in the Bible, but there's also lots of evidence outside of the Bible that points towards God. The miracles that happen to this day, literally. You have to conclude that the Bible is reliable. So then once you've concluded that the Bible is reliable, Jesus ultimately is the right answer. And how do you conclude that the Bible is reliable? People way smarter than me who know what they're talking about. Done historical checks. They know that Old Testament, they can date them, they can do these kind of things and conclude that, yeah, the scriptures in the Old Testament were written way before the New Testament. And the things that happened in the Old Testament that they said happened, and things that happened in the New Testament that they said happened. Jesus did come, Jesus did die, Jesus did rise again. We can conclude that because there's evidence that he was a person, there's evidence that he died, and there's a tomb with nobody in it, and there's no body for him. Therefore, if you conclude that the Old Testament is reliable, and it says all these things about the New Testament, these things are reliable. And once you get to that point, the scary thing is you could get to that point, you could know all these things and read all these things and understand intellectually all these things and still come to a point where it sounds too good to be true, or your flesh ultimately just doesn't want to believe it because it challenges you. It makes you have to change your life. Because ultimately, if you believe there's a God and you're searching for that God, and then you think you find that God, your ultimate goal in life, if God was real, would be to get to know that God as best as possible during this life and as quick as possible during this life. I don't think people have a problem with knowing there's a God. I don't think they want it to challenge their lifestyle, which Jesus and Christianity does for everyone. And I got Bible for it because I think it highlights massively in Matthew 11:15 when Jesus is talking to the Pharisees about loads of things. So these are the waste men. These are the people that think they know it all, think they know all these religious things. And then when God has come down to them, they disagree with him. And it's basically a short verse, and it says, those who have ears to hear will hear. Ultimately, you could say, I'm not going to believe unless God comes down right now in front of me and says, I am God. But ultimately, that's what Jesus did thousands of years ago. And we still, whatever happens, we're still intrinsically not going to want to do that. We're not going to want to accept that. Again, because it makes us change and it makes us have to look at ourselves and look at the ugliness of humanity. It directly opposes that. And we're all prideful beings. We have to just audit that pride out. So I think it ultimately comes down to, and it can conclude to, that no matter what, you can have all the evidence in the world. You can have all the intellectual evidence, you can have all the scriptural evidence, you can have all the historic evidence. God could come down in front of you and say, I am God. And ultimately, it still comes down to you choosing God. It still comes down to you choosing Christ in a life. Because life is a series of choices. You can either choose God or not. God isn't going to force your hand. Someone else can't force your hand to be in relationship with God because it is a personal relationship. There's not a human on this earth that can force your hand or push you into a relationship with God. It starts with you making that choice. You know, the sad thing is God can't even force your hand because God is ultimately all given us all a choice to either choose to be with him or not to be with him. And the sad thing is it has consequences either way. If you're watching this, you know what those consequences, you probably know what those consequences are. Yeah, you're either going upstairs or you're going downstairs. There's no two ways about it. You can even go upstairs and be in relationship with God and choose to be with him, or you can go downstairs in complete separation from God. Which choice do you want to make? Because it's a choice. So really, really think to yourself. Just think for a second if this is real and it all makes sense. And we're here on this time on earth and we have to make that decision. Are you okay with the consequences of not choosing Christ in this life? Or do you want to do what Joe said?
I'm sticking with Jesus.